Good dreary Wednesday morning, everyone. My name is Randy Lober. You are you, and together we're going to do great things here today. We're going to take the fear out of hosting Medicare events, particularly Medicare 101s, those educational events. And there's lots of good reasons to hold those events this time of year. We have not yet had the pleasure of meeting. My name again is Randy Lober, Growth Marketing Manager here at Action Benefits, and part of my job is to help you all grow your books of business. And I can't think of a better way to do that. In fact, one of the ways we grow our own business here is through educating agents. And we'd like to help you educate prospects and customers so that they build relationships with you and really, become someone you can have that long-lasting business relationship with. So that's kind of the why of today's session as well, right? Randy, it's the middle of AEP. Why are we talking about Medicare 101s? Well, in reality, there are a lot of large, nameless, faceless agencies out there who have their hands full with all that's happening in the Medicare market at the moment. They've got lots of clients to see, lots of PDPs being disrupted, lots of other plans being disrupted, and chances are good that there's going to be folks falling through the cracks. But it's hard to go and sell to those folks right away, right? They might have a long-lasting relationship with those agents or those agencies. So how do we fit you in, right? Or how do you weasel your way in there? Well, the best way to do that is position yourself as a trusted expert that they can rely on and let them come to you. And one way we can do that, again, is by hosting those Medicare 101 events throughout the year, including here during the middle of AEP. Even though there's some things about what you can and can't do, say, or sell during these particular events, they can set you up for success later on. So I'd like to, before we get started here, I know a lot of the names here. I'd like to see what statement best describes you, make sure I tailor this to fit the needs of the most of our attendees here. Is it A, you're brand new to the Medicare market? B, you have some experience in the Medicare market, but you're new to Action Benefits? C, you have experience with Medicare and Action, but could use a bit of a refresher? Or is it D, you're a seasoned pro and you just love spending time with Action? Some folks saying that they're new to the Medicare market. And again, down at the bottom, when you do put your chat, you can choose to let's try that again. Choose to chat to everyone or choose to chat just to me here today as well. Lots of folks that are newer or a lot of folks that maybe have some experience are here for the refresher. You are in the exact right place where you need to be to make sure you can have these events and do so compliantly. And one of the key questions we want to address here today is your barriers to hosting Medicare educational events, whether you find the barrier just to be finding a starting point, or maybe it's a little bit scary complying with all those CMS compliance rules, what you can or can't say or do, or maybe you're worried about how you get butts in seats, right? It's one thing to schedule the event. It's another thing to have people show up to the event and have a successful one. We'll talk about all three of those things here today, finding that starting point of where you can start, locating material that you can use. We'll talk about your compliance do's and don'ts, and we'll talk about, again, the most important part, one of the most important parts, how do you actually get people in the room? So we'll identify some key differences between educational and marketing events. In CMS lingo, they are two very different things, and they're regulated two different ways. And as an agent, you need to know about those. We'll particularly focus on the do's and don'ts of educational events today, although we do have several pieces and sessions on marketing events here as well. Today's focus is that educational event. And we'll highlight a few strategies you might use to drive attendance to your educational events and really your marketing events later on down the road here as well. So let's first talk about what the difference is. What is the difference between an educational or marketing event? And here is probably a screenshot worth taking. Your educational events, which are the focus again today, are on your left-hand side of the screen. And generally, these sessions inform Medicare beneficiaries about Medicare Advantage, prescription drug plans, or other Medicare programs. They are only educational in nature. You're not selling anything. You are not taking applications. You're not taking enrollments. You're not talking product specifics. You are simply talking about part A, B, C, and D, how they function, generally speaking, and what the beneficiaries' out-of-pocket costs could be. You also have an obligation to introduce Medicare supplement products there as well as part of the education. You're providing a well-rounded education. But really, education sessions are, how does Medicare work? How do parts A, B, C, and D work? What generally do you have to pay for them, and what generally do you cover, or do they cover? Marketing events on the right side of your screen, they present the plan-specific information with the intent of generating leads. So with those events, you do have one carrier's product information up, or maybe several carriers if you're doing an informal marketing event, you're having a kiosk or something, or doing a table at a county fair, or at a Halloween bash, or whatever the case might be. At those events are where you have your enrollment kits. Those marketing events are where you have your plan materials, right? Where they list out how plans work and exactly what benefits are in each. And you're comparing apples to apples, or oranges to oranges, or apples to oranges, depending on what exactly it is you're comparing there. That's when you get into plan detail. We should also note right up front that before you do either of these events, you must, and it has a star next to it, register the event with each carrier that you're representing at the event. And it has a star there or an asterisk because the reporting requirements can vary. We'll touch on those a little bit later on. Generally speaking, with a few exceptions, carriers no longer require you to report educational events to them, but they will always require you to report marketing events to them because they have to oversee your marketing behavior as part of their arrangement with CMS. So good things for us to know here right up the front. Let's make sure we're all on the same page here. Feel free to reach out privately or publicly. How might you describe the difference between educational and marketing events? Is it A, marketing events describe A, B, C, and D in broad terms, while educational events provide plan specifics? Is it B, educational events describe A, B, C, and D in broad terms, while marketing events provide plan specifics? Or C, there's no substantial difference between these two classifications? Go ahead and put the letter that best describes what you're thinking here in the chat, please. Yeah. And for those of you either weighing in public or privately, the answer is B. At your educational events, you're talking about broad terms. How does Medicare work? In marketing events is where you're actively presenting products and trying to make sales into those products as well. So let's talk about what's allowed at educational events. Make sure we get these compliance stuff out of the way. This is the second bit of our agenda here today. What is actually allowed at educational events? We'll talk about some do's, we'll talk about some don'ts, and make sure you are well prepared to offer these events. So generally speaking, you're welcome to teach consumers about the Medicare Advantage, prescription drugs, or any other Medicare program. You can throw in the Medicare Savings program if you like. Many carriers have CMS approved presentations that you can use, and they often do a pretty good job of scripting them as well. So long as you keep your personal opinions to yourself and you're sticking to the script here in most cases, finding ways to do this compliantly is super easy. And speaking of those carrier materials, there's a few. These are my opinions, not the opinions of Action Benefits, to be clear. But there's a few different reasons to like materials from a variety of carriers that we support. The easiest to find is the one authored by Blue Cross Blue Shield and Blue Care Network of Michigan. It's readily available in the Medicare documents inside your agent community library. Really easy to find, easy to pull down. And as they've updated it, it's gotten a little bit better, a little more user-friendly, a little more consumer-friendly as you go forward. If you are just starting out though, and you're not quite sure what you can or can't say, and you really need that scripted approach, United Healthcare, they do a fantastic job of scripting out exactly what you should be saying, down to the minute in some cases, as far as what that presentation might look like. If you are not yet appointed with them, could be worth it just for that. Also, they've got great MedSup products and other things you might want to put in front of folks here as well. But they do a lot to really help you make sure you're staying inside the guardrails when you are working on those events. The caveat there is because it's so scripted, sometimes those events can run long. I've helped agents run them, and if we do everything with fidelity, you can run up into 75 minutes or so worth of time. I've always been a big believer that your brain can only handle as much as your butt can, and 75 minutes is a lot to ask of folks, especially in today's days and age. So be wary of that as well. if you're looking for a carrier's deck that really breaks it down to really consumer-friendly language and really makes it simple, only the things you need to know to be able to talk about Medicare compliantly, Humana also puts together a great presentation, really simple, really takes you from A through D in the shortest amount of possible time while still giving consumers what they need. But again, their marketing library can be a little bit difficult to navigate, not impossible, but those are some quick plugs for some presentations that our carrier partners make available to you. What are some other things you can do at these events? You can solicit or share contact information. You just can't complete or get scopes of appointment. So you can have a business reply card, right? You can give out cards like these. And again, carriers have copies or we have copies of these we can provide to you here as well. As long as you get the consent to contact or the business reply card that says, yes, this agent can contact me about my Medicare options, you're in the clear. You can pick those up at the end of the session or throughout. Conversely, you can also just sprinkle your business cards around like confetti, give one out to everyone that walks into the room. That's totally okay. Depending on how you approach those things, of course, the business reply card is a bit of a warmer lead, but it can also be a little bit awkward, kind of standing by and waiting for people to fill information out. If that's not your style, the business card approach can work just as fine too. You can also answer any question that is asked, but I would encourage you that especially as secret shopping starts to pick back up again, and if you're newer to the industry, CMS and carriers both secret shop these events to make sure that agents are compliant throughout them, whether it's an educational event or whether it's a marketing event. What you want to stick to, though, is answer only the question that is asked. Medicare can be confusing, and people do need clarification, so please do answer their questions, but these Medicare 101s are not the time to get on your soapbox, because when you start straying too far outside that question is when you can get yourself into compliance trouble, talking about products or inadvertently comparing some products to another. So only answer the question that's asked, even if the answer is, I can't answer that here, we need to schedule an individual appointment for that. That's okay too. What else is allowed? And gosh, this can be a hard one to wrap your heads around. You got to get creative with this one. But there is what's called a nominal value standard, wherein the total of stuff you give to someone, whether it's their snacks, refreshments, or any giveaways you have, promotional items, all that combined for one person at a single event cannot total more than $15 per person. And if you do offer food, it can't ever be packaged together to look like a meal. So pizza is a meal. Can't offer pizza. But I can offer chips, cupcakes, and water, or I can bring in a homemade pie, right? Who doesn't like homemade baked goods to share out, or a homemade cake or something of the sort, or a cake from Costco if you want to dress it up. All those things are totally okay as long as the per person cost, again, is no more than $15. And that kind of goes along with promotional items. So if you are bringing promotional items along, and you should, right? These might be things like pens or magnets or pill holders or whatever the case might be. You can bring those along, but again, the total value of your promotional items plus your food and refreshments, again, can't exceed $15. Would like to then check in with you real quickly here. Which of the following things are allowed at educational events that we've talked about so far? Is it A, raffling off a larger prize worth $15 times the number of expected attendees? B, giving away carrier branded promotional items? Or C, mentioning that some plans include dental, vision, and hearing benefits? Which of the following are allowed based on what we've talked about so far? Give you a minute to put in what you think, and then we'll chat about some of the possible answers here. Some folks saying C, some folks saying A and B, some folks saying just A, some folks saying just B. We're pretty well split. I want to talk about a few nuances here. We're going to hit on letter C in a bit later on. There's a newer marketing rule that regulates what you can say about dental, vision, hearing benefits. We'll touch on that a little bit later on. But you can always give away carrier branded promotional items. So you can give away a Humana pen or a Blue Cross Blue Shield stress ball or whatever the case might be. That's okay. The danger there is that it doesn't represent your agency, but it is allowed, right? We can talk about here for a moment as well. If you have a reasonable expectation that you will have people at your event, right? You can raffle off a larger prize worth $15 times the number of your expected attendees. So if I want to raffle off a big screen TV, and I can do those for what now, $300? If I do some math, if I get 20 or so people and have all them in a room and have that as part of the raffle, that can work, right? As long as I don't give them anything else, don't give them snacks or anything else, because I got to stay into that $15 per person limit. So you can get creative here with your allowance here. Probably the better, simpler approach is, again, to think about the $15 per person. What are the giveaways you give to each individual? Because no one's going to feel great if they don't come away with nothing, or if they don't come away with anything. But again, that larger raffle is a possibility here too. Let's talk about some things that are not allowed at educational events. And I am particularly address letter C that we just brought up here as well. First things first, though, we should mention that you cannot have a mandatory sign-up or sign-in sheet. This is one thing that secret shoppers from Humana actually have called out several times in recent years. Agents have put out sign-up sheets, but they don't clearly mark that those sign-up sheets are optional, or they heavily imply that you gotta sign this out so I can talk to you, right? In CMS's opinion and in carriers' opinions, and legal opinions, they're the ones that matter here. They cannot be mandatory, nor can you imply that they are mandatory. So you want to make sure that, again, you're not doing anything to suggest that sign up is required. You want to make sure that people are only signing up if they want to. Business reply cards can be a good way around that too, that we talked about earlier. If you have those out on the table, ask to collect them from anybody who wants to fill them out freely at the end. That's a possibility as well. We just can't have a sign up sheet and make people sign it or make them feel like they have to sign up in any way, shape, or form. At an educational event, you cannot collect a scope of appointment or schedule future appointments at that time. So you can have the event, you can talk about it, but again, the beneficiary's got to reach out to you to schedule that appointment later on, unless you have that consent to contact in the form of the business reply card or something else from them. But at the event, if you're following CMS rules to the letter, you can't say, "Oh, Tom, let's meet for lunch at 11 o'clock on Thursday." Can't do that. We've got to follow all the SOA rules, knowing that we can't collect one here, right? We've got to have a separate conversation with the enrollee or the beneficiary to collect that SOA. You cannot discuss plan-specific premiums or benefits, not even mentioning $0 premiums. And that can be a tough one to wrap your head around. But even carriers in their decks, especially Blue Cross and all three of the ones I mentioned earlier, are very careful to say that as well, especially when they're talking about Medicare Advantage plans. They all say that premiums vary. None of them say on the deck that the plans can be $0 premium. CMS and secret shoppers have taken to mean the mention of $0 premiums during those sessions to be the equivalent of steering toward Medicare Advantage, right? Because $0 always sounds better than whatever you'd pay for a Medicare supplement or something else. So CMS has recently cracked down on that as well. Can't bring up the $0 word, the Z word, during these sessions. You can only say that premiums may vary for those Part C plans. You also cannot distribute plan-specific materials, especially and including enrollment kits. Can't stress that enough. So you can't lay out menus or comparison guides or anything of the sort during these. You can only stick to the ABCD, how they work, and what ABCD generally cost. We can't get into your copays on a PPO essential or whatever the case might be. Similarly, just like you can't get materials for a plan, you can't talk about a specific plan either. So even if a beneficiary comes up to you and says in the middle of the session, "Hey, will my plan work if I go out of the country, or I have this plan, or I have a POS plan, does it work when I come outside of the Michigan service area? Can't answer that question because it talks about a specific plan. That will require a scope of appointment to give you permission to talk product with that person later on. You also, and I can share the CMS citation with you if you're uncomfortable with this, but you can't say that MA plans have extra perks or benefits. You can't even mention embedded dental, hearing, or vision unless you're doing it in a way that the carriers do so in their decks. Again, CMS sees that inclusion of embedding dental, hearing, and vision as steering toward Medicare Advantage. And not toward Medicare supplement, or at least presenting a fair argument on both sides. So that we can't mention that at all during those sessions here. You cannot hold them in a home or a one-on-one setting. So you cannot, for example, say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, let me come over and run through my whole presentation for you. That doesn't quite meet the guidelines, nor can you do it in another one-on-one setting. So I can't say, Miss Smith, let's meet at the local library and we'll get a room together and I'll run through this whole presentation with you. Can't do that. It's got to be open to the public when you're doing an educational event like this. One more time, a concern to be aware of here as well. You cannot hold a marketing event within 12 hours of an educational event at the same location. So those marketing events where you're collecting apps, presenting products, you can have them in the same place, but there's got to be a 12-hour difference. So in theory, this regulation is in place to prevent education and marketing from happening back to back. People saying, oh, I love what this guy has to say. I'm going to stay later on and enroll with them. CMS wants beneficiaries to have that cool down period, that 12-hour cool down period between seeing you the first time and seeing you at least the second time, right? So you could, for example, schedule your educational event at the local library at 12 or at 7 a.m. at the local library and have a marketing event at 7 p.m. That would be okay. Don't know what your attendance would be like, but it's entirely possible. Or you could have an educational event at 1 p.m. at the local library and then go to another local library and have a marketing event at that event. That's okay. Just can't be within 12 hours of each other at the same place. Which of the following of these are not allowed at educational events? And remember, you can check in publicly or privately. Is it A, having a mandatory sign-in sheet, B, collecting scopes of appointment, or C, holding a marketing event directly afterward in the same place? Which can you not do, A, B, or C? Exactly right. You can't do any of them. For everyone that's weighing in privately here, can't do any of these three things at an educational event. A, B, C is the correct answer. So can't have that mandatory sign-in, can't collect a scope, can't have it a marketing event direct in the same place. So we talked about do's and don'ts. There's a few other kind of miscellaneous things that we need to be mindful of here as well. First thing is, again, talking only about your educational events. Not all carriers require you to register them, but if they do, the process can be a doozy. If you do, just as a quick example, Blue Cross Blue Shield, for example, no longer requires you to report educational events. UHC, for example, does if you're using their materials. And your account manager here at Action Benefits can help you run down the whole list. So just know that there are some things that you need to be aware of. And again, would encourage you to reach out to your account manager. Registering an event, though, looks pretty much the same across all carriers. They use a standardized form across all carriers. In fact, one that CMS prescribes. At a minimum, you'll have to know your name and your agency name. You'll have to know your NPN. You'd have to know what language you're giving the presentation in. CMS wants to know, make sure we're matching up the languages with the generally dominantly spoken languages in an area here as well. So like, don't go to Southwest Detroit and only give one in English, is essentially what CMS is guarding against there. You do have to include your event name, like the Clinton Macomb Library or the Marquette Baby Boomers Expo, whatever the name happens to be, must be there here as well. For your purposes, you're going to report this as an educational event, so we're not going to worry about the marketing requirements there, but the reporting looks much the same here. You'll look for a date, your event start time, your location details, including address and who CMS could contact there to verify that the event happened. And if you do use advertisements or materials, they'd be required to be included in the submission as well. Fortunately, we do make this process very easy for you. There's a whole article about it in Insurability, which is the knowledge base we provide to all of our agents here. If you go to Insurability and you type in article reference SM00546, it's going to bring you to this article here, or you can type in delivering a compelling and compliant Medicare prospecting meeting or some variation of that. It's going to bring you to this article. The do's and don'ts we talked about are here as well, but also the spreadsheet you need to download to fill out and report your educational event is there as well. All you need to do is fill out that spreadsheet, get it over to Individual Action Benefits, and your account manager will take care of the rest to report it to your the carrier or carriers you're interested in. As far as when to report things, always a good practice to report it as soon as you've got it scheduled. Generally speaking, carriers would like it reported by the 10th day of the month prior to the event. So if you want to have one in December, report it to us by November 10th, and we'll help you make sure it's done there. Minimally, report it at least 7 calendar days prior to the event. We can, with most carriers, pull some strings to get it. These carriers that require you to report it, we can pull some strings to get it approved before then. But gosh, the more lead time you give us, the better in helping you get stuff done. There are some very specific rules that CMS has for canceling events here as well. So I want to make sure we talk about that. If you cancel the event more than 48 hours in advance, if you notify both the carriers or Action Benefits at least 48 hours prior, we can help you take care of the cancellation notification. But you do have to also notify beneficiaries by the same means used to advertise the event. Meaning if you did a radio buy to try to drive people to your event at the local library, you've also got to do another radio buy to say, hey, the event's canceled. So a little bit of risk and reward there. If you did email blast, same thing, you got to do an email blast, use the same method that you advertised to notify of cancellation. If you cancel less than 48 hours in advance, you must be present at the site for at least 15 minutes after the scheduled start time and post signage or have the venue post signage to indicate your cancellation or rescheduling. If you do cancel due to inclement weather, say, winter's coming up here and the roads are impassable, there is no need to arrive, but you should notify the venue to post signage about the cancellation as well, and preferably include information about a possible reschedule there too. What should be done then to report an event to the carrier or carriers you're appointed with? Is it A, you should collect information, complete the required spreadsheet, B, submit the spreadsheet to the carriers at least 7 days prior to the event, or C, attach any marketing materials like flyers and those sorts of things that are used to your submission. Which of those 3 things should you do, keeping in mind that you may need to do more than one of those things? Definitely got to complete the spreadsheet. For those of you waiting in with that, appreciate that. For those of you also throwing B in, we've got to submit this spreadsheet to the carrier or us. Either one will work for us here, at least 7 days prior. Again, preferably before the 10th of the month prior to the event. And see if you are using any flyers or advertisements, those must be part of your submission here as well. So you've got to do A, B, and C here when you are registering an event. Although keep in mind that not every carrier does require you to register your educational events. Promised you 45 minutes here today, so with the last few moments, I want to talk about a few different ways you can drive folks to come to your session here. Talk about 4 different strategies that we could use here. The first one is partner with a mailing house. So these are maybe local printers. You might have a Temple Brothers or something of the sort near you, or Minute printers or any of those sorts of things. All of them are really good at, if you need them to, designing materials to help get people there, and all of them are really good at finding lists of people that are likely to be in part of your audience, right? People who are already 65 or people turning 65 soon for your Medicare 101. So there's 2 ways you can go about this. You can use census data, and we've got a set of webinars, and your account manager here is happy to help you use some of that census data to really figure out where the high value or prospect rich areas around you are, Or again, you can purchase lead lists from some of these mailing houses as well to distribute those targeted mailers to invite folks out to your Medicare 101. I do need to caution you, though, that some of these mailing houses are not always aware of CMS compliance rules, what you can and can't say, though. So always, I'm going to say this on every slide here. So anything you send must be compliant with the rules in your target markets. And I say that deliberately here because you could use the mailing house to for any number of reasons, right? Maybe you mail to the entire area about all of your educational services, not just what you're doing for Medicare 101. But if you are advertising the Medicare 101, there's a few disclaimers that have got to be on there. We can help you with those as well. Again, compliance here is the main concern. A bit cheaper option, though it's more of a shotgun approach than a laser focus approach, is leveraging every door direct mail from the U.S. Postal Service. Using some good census data or even some good data the Postal Service can provide to you once you create a business account with the Postal Service. They can show you down to the mailing route what percentage of that population is over 65, what percent of them, what are their income levels, so you can get an idea of whether they're more likely to be DSNP eligible or more likely to be out in the market for med sups or somewhere in between. There's a lot of good data you can get from every door direct mail. Happy to have a conversation with you mailing that here as well. The post office will not help you with your own creative, so you've got to bring like a postcard or something made to them to drop off, and we can help you with that postcard building here as well. We'll help you with the compliance there, but it's really can be much more affordable option, especially if you're just starting out, than maybe working with the mailing house might. The trade-off is that because it's a little more affordable, it's more of a shotgun approach. You may be reaching people that are not in your target market or that aren't looking for Medicare 101 just yet. Probably the most affordable paid option you have in front of you is social media ads. And I'm talking about things like Meta ads, so Facebook and Instagram, talking things like LinkedIn in some cases. You can look at ads on Nextdoor, all those sorts of apps that are real local, give you a real local presence. You can target your ad down to a geographic area where you want it to be. And so you can say, I'm going to show this to everyone that lives within 10 miles of the local library that we're at here, right? And it'll do that for you. And you can often get started for as little as $5 per day, which it can be pretty cost effective for you there as well. There are some things that you'll want to think about when you're placing those ads. We have a webinar next week to help you through some of those. But generally speaking, if you're talking about the most effective way to reach people, the most cost-effective way to reach people, this can be really one of them. The other way you can drive people there is getting boots on the ground, right? And again, you can't go door to door when you're looking for boots on the ground here. Want to again stress the compliance issues with that. There's no door-to-door solicitation with Medicare products. But you can go to libraries, community or senior centers. You can walk around, meet people, invite them to the event. You can go to, I have one agent up in the thumb. She's always visiting farmers markets and talking with people and inviting them to the events that she's holding and doing really well with that to get people there. So go wherever you can to build those personal connections and get people in to your event. Oftentimes that's two good touch points. That can be all that they need to really choose you as their agent going forward. Another option you have is maybe still paid in terms of printing costs, but wallpaper every local bulletin board you see. So visit doctor's offices and say, having a Medicare 101, can I put this on your bulletin board? Nearly every doctor's office I've walked into has that bulletin board in the vestibule that you can take advantage of. Go to local pharmacies. That's an option for you. It's certainly, as you come in the door, many pharmacies have those. Even better if they're independent pharmacies, right? That still need a connection with their customers in ways that CVS or a Walgreens don't. Also, a good spot here is your mom and pop diners, your Coney Islands, all those places. I have bulletin boards, or they have spots where you can put an ad on their, on their placemats. Lots of good ways you can, again, print those flyers, get them out in front of people here as well. like to hear from you is as we talk about some of those strategies, if there's anything that stands out to you at the moment that sounds doable, or see if there's any questions you have generally about some ways you can get in touch with folks. And again, we're here to help you with those. I'll give you a moment to type those. But that is what we have scheduled for today here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to stick around for any questions you might have or anything specific to your use case you might have. You're always happy to reach out to us at Action Benefits through any channel you have, whether it's on LinkedIn at the Action Benefits Company. You can email us at info@actionbenefits.com or give us a call at 248-356-8585. And we are happy to help you with whatever it is you need. Again, want to thank you for your time and attention here today. Happy to stick around for any questions you might have. And I'm going to pause the recording here so we don't have some dead air for folks who might be watching the recording later.